In a land starved by fear, an old woman stood alone at a river's edge. Her hands were cracked from washing clothes that never seemed to come clean, and her heart was cracked from a lifetime without a child. That day, the river ran strangely quiet. No laughter from the village, only the slow whisper of water and the distant memory of drums from Oni Island. Then she saw it. A peach, impossibly large, rolling against the current as if the river itself were pushing it toward her. Its skin glowed soft and warm, out of place in a world gone cold. She pulled it from the dark water, half believing it had been sent by the gods, half fearing it had been sent by something else. In their dim hut, her husband raised a knife. When the blade touched its skin, the fruit split, and a crying child fell from its heart. They called him Momotarō, the son of the peach, the boy the river gave back to a grieving land. Some say he was a blessing. Some say he was a weapon. Everyone remembers the boy from the peach. The story of Momotarō, Peach Boy, is one of Japan's most beloved folk tales, still told to children in picture books, stage plays, and animated films today. Its familiar version was crystallized during the Edo period, though its roots may reach back even further into oral tradition. An elderly couple lives alone in the countryside, burdened by age and by the absence of children. One day, the old woman discovers a giant peach floating down the river, brings it home, and finds a baby boy inside when they cut it open. They raise him as their own, naming him Momotarō, Momo meaning peach, watching him grow into a youth of extraordinary strength, courage, and a strangely single-minded sense of justice. As he comes of age, he learns of Oni, ogres, who raid from a distant island called Onigashima, stealing people, wealth, and peace from the surrounding lands. Momotarō decides he will cross the sea, defeat the Oni, and bring back the stolen treasures. His foster parents arm him with a sword, armor, and special dumplings called kibidango as provisions for the journey. He walked alone toward the sea, or so he thought. On the road, a hungry dog blocked his path, teeth bared, ribs showing through its fur. Momotarō did not draw his blade. He drew a dumpling. The dog bowed its head and followed. A little farther, a monkey dropped from the trees, quick hands reaching for the food at his belt. Momotarō did not curse him. He offered him a share. The thief became a soldier. At the edge of the cliffs, a pheasant circled overhead, suspicious and sharp-eyed. Momotarō held up the last of his kibidango. Hunger won. The bird landed, and another ally joined his march to Oni Island. In most tellings, the dog, monkey, and pheasant each represent different strengths: loyalty and straightforward force, clever agility, and aerial vision or speed. Together, they transform Momotarō from a lone boy into the leader of a small, specialized strike team. They travel across the sea to Onigashima, sometimes by boat, sometimes in more fantastical versions, where the journey itself is barely described. The emphasis is always on the destination, the Oni fortress, a place of otherness, danger, and forbidden wealth. Oni Island rose from the sea like a broken tooth. Smoke coiled from its cliffs, and the wind carried the echoes of laughter too cruel to belong to men. The pheasant flew first, cutting through the clouds, its beak and claws raking the heads of startled Oni below. While their eyes turned upward, the monkey scaled the wall, slipping through shadow to unbar the heavy gate. When the doors groaned open, the dog and the boy charged as one, teeth and steel, fur and iron. They crashed into a storm of clubs, horns, and howls. By the end, the fortress floor ran red. Cornered and beaten, the Oni surrendered, swearing never to attack the villages again. They dragged out chest after chest of stolen treasure, gold, jewels, and strange artifacts said to bend luck and shadow. Momotarō loaded the spoils onto his boat. He did not look back as Oni Island faded behind them. In gentle retellings, the Oni become almost cartoonish villains, their defeat celebrated as a clear victory of good over evil. But older and more detailed versions preserve a sense of violence, blood, and fear that hints at something darker beneath the surface. When Momotarō returned, the villagers cried out with joy. Chests burst open, spilling gold and heirlooms, rings taken from cold fingers, swords taken from cold hands. The old couple wept, seeing their son alive and shrouded in glory. They say he lived in wealth from that day on. They say the land was finally safe. But treasure never tells you who it belonged to first. And blood never washes entirely out of stone. Whether he saved them or simply conquered, no one can agree. They only remember the boy from the peach. On the surface, the folktale ends happily ever after. Momotarō brings back treasure, the Oni are defeated, and the village prospers. Yet when we look closely, the story centers on invading a distant island, subduing its non-human inhabitants, and seizing their wealth in the name of peace. The peach itself is loaded with meaning. In East Asian traditions, peaches are associated with vitality, longevity, and sometimes immortality, making Momotaro's birth a symbol of divine favor and miraculous renewal for an aging couple and a troubled land. Oni, meanwhile, sit at the blurry edge between monster and marginalized being. Demons, yes, but also embodiments of outsiders, criminals, or enemies of the social order. By casting them on a remote island, the story creates a clear boundary between our home and that dangerous elsewhere that must be cleansed. The animal trio can be read as a unification of conflicting forces. Dog, monkey, and pheasant are natural rivals in many contexts, yet under Momotarō, they cooperate toward a single goal. In this light, the boy from the peach becomes not just a hero, but an organizing power, someone who can align chaos into an army. Some scholars and cultural critics suggest that this structure made the story especially adaptable for later political uses. A chosen leader, loyal followers, a righteous invasion, and a promise of restored prosperity back home. During the early 20th century, especially before and during World War II, Momotaro's legend was repurposed as nationalist propaganda in Japan. Animated films and children's books recast Momotarō as a stand-in for the Japanese state, and Oni Island became a metaphor for foreign enemies or colonized territories. In some wartime animations, Momotarō leads modernized animal soldiers, often representing Japan's allies, on a heroic campaign to liberate or subdue demonized foes, echoing the original folktale's basic pattern. For young audiences, the line between mythic justice and real-world militarism blurred. The boy from the peach was no longer just a fairy tale hero, but a model of patriotic duty and sacrificial courage. This dual history, children's bedtime story and political tool, gives the legend a strange kind of double vision. It can inspire courage and teamwork, while also reminding us how easily a simple tale of good versus evil can be weaponized. So who was Momotarō, really? A child of heaven? Or a child of war? Maybe he was both. To the lonely couple, he was a miracle sent in a peach. To the villagers, he was the sword that cut down their nightmares. To the Oni, he was the nightmare. Stories survive because they can wear many faces. In schools, he is a smiling boy with animal friends. In the memories of war, he is a banner. Today, Momotarō remains a symbol of bravery and cooperation, printed on snacks, celebrated in Okayama, and retold in countless children's formats. But for those who look deeper, His story also asks difficult questions about who we call monsters, whose lands we invade in the name of safety, and how myths can be used to justify power. In the end, the river gives and the river takes. The boy from the Peach still sails for Oni Island in the minds of those who hear his name. The question is, when you tell his story, are you asking your listeners to be brave or asking them to obey?